Hey, everybody, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Hour. This is a podcast where myself and Lupo, right there, we get to talk about, well, any subject we really want to. And Lupo last week chose fall bass fishing because he knows how much of a fisherman that I am. But before we get talking, Lupo, introduce yourself for those who have not been around.
Hey, I am Robert Lupo from Lupo Outdoors, and our channel focuses a lot on firearms, but we do fishing, sailing, kayaking, archery, a little bit of everything. Whitewater rafting, we talk about that. Um, so the channel is our channel is really a massive outdoor channel, a little bit of everything for outdoor things. I do quite a bit of firearms because
It's
I'm
part of the
really,
outdoors. Yeah.
yeah, part of the outdoors. But I was a competition shotgun shooter for years, and now I'm getting into long range precision shooting, and that's really become an obsession right now.
So for everybody else that's been watching the show, this is actually kind of a mind meld between Lupo and myself. We're like, we got to do something together. So we came up with the Outdoor Adventure Hour, and yeah, we just have fun every Friday, and we really appreciate you guys coming out and hanging with us on Friday. So Lupo, last week you decided we're going to talk about fall bass fishing. So for me, being the ordained bass master that I am, I had no idea that there was a difference between fall bass fishing and summer bass fishing. And so what's the deal with fall bass fishing? I would think it would just be the same thing.
No. So um, when it comes to focusing and fishing for bass specifically, the seasons make a massive difference in how you present your bait, how you work the bait, your rod selection, your reel selection, what you're going to be wearing while you're out there. So here in Florida, our fall season's different than other parts. So if you're like in Montana, it like here's an example. What temperature is it right now where you live in Montana?
It is currently 62 degrees right now.
And here, where I am in the Orlando, Florida area, it's currently about 88 degrees.
Yeah, I'll
So,
take my 62 over your 88 any
yeah,
day.
me too, normally. So the situation is understanding the water you're going to go to, um, temperature and color. So as it cools down, bass move closer to shore and they tend to hug the bottom more. So how you're presenting your baits are going to be a little bit different. Like for
So you
instance,
say, are you saying that we got to have Vanna White with us when we go out fishing?
what do you think?
Yeah,
See, there I am in the background fishing with a fish.
the fish. You're fishing with a fish?
I'm fishing with it. He's my guide. The thing with bass fishing is you can be successful any time of the year, and different parts of the year are going to be more exciting than others, but you can catch bass all year round. If you're in a location where the lakes freeze over, it's a little bit of a different situation because you're not really going after bass. If you're ice fishing, you're going over after things like pike and more cold water situations, and muskrats. Muskrats like to swim. um, but there's a lot to take in consideration for fall season. And your gear changes and your clothing changes. You're not going to be wading out into the water without waders in the fall because, like you said, it's 60s,
Well, it's
some odd
it's a
degrees.
thing.
It's much colder in the water.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like water temperature here in the summer is, and this is summer months. Our water temperature is like 50 in the 50s, sometimes in the 40s.
Mm.
Water here is cold. Um, it's I've never seen water this cold other than, like, I don't know, in the winter time. This is summertime. So yeah, it's so what you're saying is that the bass like to go farther down towards the earth to stay warm. Then
Yeah,
they're trying to
and
warm
and
themselves to get
usually closer to shore. You know, the deeper
where
the
the sun
water, the
can
colder it
because
gets.
where the yeah, they want that heat from the earth and then shallower water so the sun kind of penetrates down as well. So okay, that
Yeah,
makes
I mean,
sense.
a lot of people are like, "Oh, I just use anything," and I'm like, if you really want to be successful, I mean, you're going to be changing many things, including your line. You know, an example would be the fluorocarbon. Excuse me, fluoro. Can't speak English today. The carbon lines are really, really good during the fall. They're
Why?
practically invisible. So,
Okay, so
because of how they are and how the water is, they vanish, absolutely vanish. Um, and that could be everything. You know, the bass sees the line, bass ain't gonna go after the lure. And these specific lines are specific for things like finicky bass, which is
okay.
just spectacular. But there's all kinds of things like your lure selection. You got to look for your colors can change a little bit. Um, but most of your lure selections, you're going to fish the same type of lures, but you're going to fish them a little bit differently. Um, when the bass are spawning, fast moving lures have a tendency to do a reaction strike. But in colder weather, slower moving lures
So
are going to
so
stimulate the strike.
so so for the total noob like me, I'm holding two lures in my hand. How do I know which one's fast moving versus slow moving?
Depends on the lure.
Okay.
So,
What are characteristics of a fast moving versus a slow moving?
so many of the lures could be run the same way. So a lipless crankbait, like uh, let's see, what's a good one? Just any kind of a lipless crankbait, like a rattle trap, is a good example. Now, if I run a rattle trap fast during spawning season, the noise it makes and the fast moving action is going to stimulate a strike. But in the fall, I want to simulate dying bait fish. So what I'll do is I'll jerk, run it fast, let it drift, jerk, let it drift, jerk, and then pull it up a little bit faster, let it fall. What I'm trying to simulate on any lure, or soft plastic, is dying bait fish in the fall. They want to grab onto it as quickly as possible. And there's times where, like when they're spawning, I'm going to try to pull like a crankbait fairly fast to make a lot of movement and stimulate a chase. But in the fall and winter, I want to slow it down and be a dying bait fish.
Okay. So basically, you're trying to they're getting kind of lazy in the fall. So you're trying to actually stimulate that laziness in them, going, "Hey, this is an easy strike. Let me come grab that thing," and well, then they become dinner.
Yep.
So now you're talking about waiter. You're not going to, we're going to be wearing waiters. I mean, this is all stuff.
Well, that's
Last
if you're
time I
going to
was,
go in the water. If you're
yeah,
going to walk out into the water, I have a brand new pair of waders, and I bought them brand new maybe 18 years ago, and I've never worn them in the water. But I still have them. They're still brand new, just never worn them because I don't normally go into like waders are fantastic if you're going into like a stream, like if you fly fishing for trout or you're fishing for trout and you're going to wade out there because that water's cold.
yeah,
But I don't do a lot of that, so I have them. like if I'm going to use a float tube and, go out there and put some fins on the waders. But I don't do a lot of that either. So it's all dependent.
So in general, people wouldn't typically have waders for fall bass fishing.
It depends. If you're gonna fish in a stream, you're absolutely gonna wear waders because you're gonna go out there into the water.
Right.
If you're doing shore fishing or even boat fishing, you're not gonna put your body in the water. But in different areas, it's freezing cold out there. So the wet, like for instance, if you're gonna dress, you're gonna wear layers. You want stuff to be able to take off and put on. So, you're going to have multi-layers. You're going to have like in really cold areas, I would wear like long underwear. And then I'll put like a good shirt over that and then my jacket. And then I have the flexibility to remove or add as necessary.
Now, earlier you were talking about the difference of line. So, talk to me a little bit about line, because I mean, it was back when I was fishing as a kid, it was all like monofilament. I mean, that was like all you had. So, you were talking about fluorocarbon
Yep.
lines and stuff. So what is? I mean, you're talking about it disappears in the water. Wouldn't we just want to go buy that all the time and fish with it?
No, because you have monofilament, you have fluorocarbon, and you have braided lines. Just to kind of specify, braided lines are fantastic, super strong. What you do is you get a light line action, but a heavy line strength. So something that would simulate like a 4 to 6 pound line, giving me that flexibility and that long casting capabilities that have the strength of 18-pound test is amazing. And those come in the specific colors. So you need to understand what the color is around where you are. But the problem with braided lines is when you're casting and you're specifically reeling in, if you don't have a ceramic eyes on the on your rod, so your rods often have like hardened plastic, or ceramic with steel, right? Mm-hmm. So what you want with braided lines is ceramic, right? Metal has a tendency, as you're reeling it in, you're creating friction with the metal, and if there's a sore spot on that, it'll eat away at your line. Plastic, it just starts to eat into the plastic of your eyelet, and then that just becomes a whole kettle of fish right there, right? The higher end rods have ceramic, and the lower end have metal or monofilament. So this specific rod here, it's a long rod. This is a 7 feet 2 inch rod, and it'll do 3/8 to 1 ounce lures, and it wants 10 to 20 pound line. And this is a medium heavy rod. Now, almost all my rods are medium heavy. I want that strength in there to be able to really flip it out there. Light rods bend heavily, so I'm not going to get the cast that I want. And with this specific rod, I'm going to get a really good cast with it. And I have a bait casting reel on it. This is a combo. I got this, actually, I bought this last year at Black Friday at Bass Pro Shops, and it's a spectacular rod and reel combo that all the eyelets are ceramic. And it's interesting because it has like a little small one here, and then all the other eyelets are these tiny little eyelets all the way out to the top. Great rod and reel combination. I can use it for flipping, everything, and it just does a great job. Uh, Everything I do all year round is I use medium heavy rods for bass all the time.
Okay.
Um, I want to feel the strike and I want to feel the nibbles, so I
So,
can feel the action of the lure as I'm reeling it in with these.
so with that, with going into fall and winter, you can still run the exact same rod all 4 seasons. Then
Yeah,
you don't have to change. You don't have to.
right.
That's like one piece of equipment you don't have to change over for
Yeah.
the different seasons.
So,
Okay.
and then the reels you can use are bait casting and spinning reels. So I showed you the bait casting reel, and this is a spinning reel, right? This is the one that most people are used to. And the way you work these are very, very different. Now, this one also has
Hold that back up. I put you up full screen so we can see that. Okay. So that's like the typical reel that I would
everyone
do
sees,
back when I
right?
was a kid. Yeah. Yep.
And then this one is what they call a bait casting reel. And these are absolutely spectacular for bass fishing.
God, that's almost like an offshore reel.
It almost is. The thing you got to remember when casting these is if you're not used to casting them, go out in your yard and make a few casts. Put just like a small weight on the end and cast, because you want to keep your thumb over the reel. Without your thumb over the reel, so there's magnets inside the reel that you can adjust, and that helps slow down the reel, because if it goes too fast, then you get like this bird's nest, and then you're
Yeah.
spending
Yes.
hours untangling your line, and that's just the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Well, you see, and that's one thing that was always annoying for me is I would always end up with a bird's nest, and it just wasn't fun for me. But I also didn't practice casting either, right? I mean, I was a kid. I just let me throw everything at this thing that I've got. Um, so yeah, I was never all that good at casting. So it's kind of weird because I mean we're talking about, last time I was fishing is shit, man, I think I was in like 7th or 8th grade. Maybe even younger than that. So I mean technology has changed since I fished.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So I mean, so here's the kick. I mean, you and I do a lot of shooting sports,
mm,
and you know as well as I do, um, that you often get what you pay for, especially in
yes.
like firearms. When a firearm costs less than $200, there's usually a reason. It doesn't mean it's a bad firearm. It just means that it's not match grade. I mean, it's like I
Yeah.
I wouldn't take a under $200 .22 rifle uh, to a 22 caliber match and expect to do anything with it. Um, but it's the same thing with your fishing reels. If you buy a crappy fishing reel, you're gonna have problems. Um,
Well, let me ask you this. So, uh, uh, I remember a long time ago, being a kid, you never spent the money on the stereo in the car. You always put the money in the speakers because an okay stereo sounded great through great speakers, right? You never went the other way around. You never put all the money into the radio and have crappy speakers. So, are you, would you then say that you would put more money into the reel than the rod?
nope.
Okay.
This is where they're equally important.
Okay.
Like, if you're going to do a competition, would you spend more money on the scope or the rifle, or would you try to balance it out?
Well, yeah, I would probably balance it even with the ammunition too. So yeah,
That yes,
I would
exactly, right?
because if I have a great scope but a crappy rifle, it doesn't matter how dead on that scope is. The rifle can't match the accuracy
Right.
of the
And your
scope.
if your
Yeah,
app and if your ammo shit, you're not going to make it either, right?
yeah,
So
right.
it's like with when I had my BMW, we ripped out the stereo system and we ripped out the speakers and we ripped out the wiring and we replaced it all with top of the line. So we had a top of the line stereo system, which allowed me to really work with
you could
a
drive.
built-in equalizer.
Yep.
We did high grade wires, right? Because crappy wires heat up and they don't produce.
Yeah, you
And
could overdrive. Yeah,
yeah,
because you just take the factory wire, you could overdrive that wire.
exactly. And it's like Cat 5 and Cat 7 cables for computers, right? One's going to give you far better performance. And
Right.
then we put really high level speakers in, right? So you get the absolute best of all three. So with fishing, the rod, the reel, and the proper line makes it. So if you look at all the professional bass fishermen, it's a combination, and we haven't even talked electronics, and it's a whole
Yeah.
new world.
So, and that's kind of interesting to think about that. So, basically, you're trying to balance, like, you're trying to create this harmony of multiple things because you got your rod, your reel, your line, and your lure. All of them really got to balance out,
Right.
and in order to be successful. So, we talked about in the wintertime, you change your bait. Wintertime, you change your your line. Would we change anything else? I mean, we already talked about you run the same rod all year round. Would we change our reel in the wintertime? Or would we
Not
run the same reel?
necessarily. I mean, I usually keep the rod and reel combination the same, um, because I'm familiar on how it reacts to the rod.
Okay.
It's like the combo I have. I got 50% off the rod and reel combo. And it's an anniversary edition rod and reel combo, and I still spent almost $200. Um, I have spent up to $500 just for a reel.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do
I
that now
know.
because I'd rather put it into a rifle.
I, and that's the thing is I know a bunch of fly fishermen out here. They those guys can spend up to $1,000 on a rod, and I was like,
Easy, easy.
oh my,
And fly
yeah,
fishing is a whole different story because
yeah.
that's something I want to try. I've never actually tried
I
fly
don't have
fishing.
see, I don't have the patience for it. That's my problem. I don't have the patience for it. So all right. So would you prepare your reel differently for fall or winter? I mean, would you use a different type of oil or I mean,
No, no, no. What I'm gonna do is you need to adjust the drag dependent on the line you're using. So if
okay.
I'm going to use like the fluorocarbon line, I'm going to ease up on the drag a little bit. But if I'm going to do braided line, I'm going to tighten my drag more because it has
So
more capabilities.
so what's drag? Talk to me about that.
So when you see like people fishing in the movies and they get a strike and all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
the drag. So that reel right now is not just open where it's just like letting line out. There's tension on that reel because if you have no tension and you pull really hard,
It's gonna
it's
snap.
gonna
Yeah.
bird nest and lock
Yeah.
up. So the drag is the tension on that. So what I would normally do, like if I'm fishing in the summer, depending on my line, is I want to tighten up my drag where it takes a little bit of effort to pull it out. And then I'll
Okay.
normally leave it like that. So what I've done is I've stepped back from the breaking point of that line. Um,
Okay.
and then I can release drag if I have to fight a bigger fish. There's a lot more to it. That when you start looking at things in the fall, things like topwater lures, you change your topwater water lures up a little bit. And it also depends if it's sunny or if it's overcast. Is it morning or is it nighttime? Fall bass fishing is a whole science. It's a whole science, but it's that way for every season of the year when it comes to bass fishing. People are like, I just use the same worms all the time. I'm like, you would be more successful if you changed it up. Like in fall, you want you want watermelon and pumpkin, or two fabulous colors to use during
You're
the
in your
fall.
oranges. So you're in your
Well,
oranges then.
the watermelon's more of a green, right?
Wait.
And with
Okay, you're
spot.
talking about the skin of the watermelon, not a.
Yes, yeah, they call
Okay.
it watermelon, and it's kind of a dark green. But also, like on sunny days, I want brighter colors. On overcast days, I want more earth tone and darker colors.
See, I would think that would be the direct opposite.
You would think, but that's not the case. Because when it's overcast and sun can't get down to where the bass are, it's the movement and the shadow that
Okay.
that stimulates the strike.
See, I would have gone the direct opposite. I would think that if it's overcast or cloudy, I would go bright so they could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's bright out, then I would go a little darker because they can see it. The sun's coming through, so they can see it. It's
Right.
funny thinking about that way because I would I would I would suck at fishing. Would totally suck at fishing because I do the direct. I would do everything the direct opposite. I would run the same line all year round, regardless of fish, regardless of season. I would have my lures backwards. Um, I mean, it's just weird to think about. I mean, as much as he says it's a much science. I mean, there's also the art for it, like the art of actually setting that hook. I never
Yeah.
had the feel for setting a hook because I was always told watch the bobber. When I think bob, you said I'm like okay, and of course being a kid, you know I'm like yanking on it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I, so so would you talk to me a little bit about setting the hook? Would you set the hook differently in fall versus winter,
So
or
let's
fall
first
versus
start with
summer?
talking about the different lures.
Okay,
So I love top water fishing. And so in the fall, um, poppers and buzz baits are my two favorite lures to fish in the fall.
okay.
And you
I
normally
actually
fish.
caught my first fish off a popper.
See,
I
poppers are
remember that.
fantastic. You kind of do the walk the dog thing across. But what's great about buzz baits is they make such a commotion, they stimulate an attack. Um, and with poppers and buzz baits, um, poppers I would work slow, and buzz baits you work fast, right? When I go out to a brand new location, I always start off with um, a rattle trap. That's my favorite go-to lure for when I'm at a new lake. And what I'm doing is I'm sending it out into multiple different locations, trying to get a judgment of what's out there if I'm fishing from shore. Now, like I said, I would fish a rattle trap. Uh, I would jerk it, and I want to simulate in the fall dying bait fish more than anything else. I want to simulate the natural fish out there and simulate a distressed or dying bait fish. In the fall, they're trying to fatten up for the winter. So that's your best bet. And they become far more reactive. Now, with soft plastics, I want to stick to the normal bait fish colors. So the most common would be like um, uh, a silver and blue would be great. That when you want to simulate the shad colors or crawfish colors.
okay.
Crankbaits, I want to do shallow diving and mid diving because I'm going to be shooting off towards shore and I want to bring it in. And in some ways, I want it to kind of bounce along the bottom, but not get engorged that way, if that makes sense.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about bouncing on the bottoms. Like I thought we're supposed to keep our baits off the bottom of the lake,
Um,
unless we're shoe fishing
well,
or tire fishing.
so all your soft plastics are bottom. So a Carolina rig or a Texas rig are going to really benefit at this time. Let's see what else here.
We got Georgia Trucker 69 out there. He's driving but listening. Buzzbait.
Oh,
So
yeah.
apparently he's loving buzzbait there.
So buzz baits are spectacular, and he's right. So I'll use like a chartreuse buzz bait in the fall, and like I said, buzz baits work best early morning or in the evening. Those are my best times. There is nothing like topwater fishing at nighttime. So in the summer and in the spring, I'll go fishing at between 10 and 3 a.m. and just do nothing but stick baits, poppers, and buzz baits, and it's freaking awesome. It's just great. There is nothing like just hearing this big splash and then feeling your rod bend over as somebody as a big bass takes a topwater lure, and you don't even see it, but sure as hell feel it.
So that's kind of funny because you're talking about this stuff. So you would use a different lure in the morning and early afternoon than you would in the afternoon and evening.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you go deeper in the evening then if you're going top fishing in the morning?
Like at nighttime and mornings, I love topwater lures. Now, frogs are usually fantastic around the spring, but I don't use them in the fall. Like I said, poppers, either in a shad color or a bass color, and then I really really love chartreuse buzz baits. Always have really really good luck with those. But it's also dependent. So you want something to startle and react with the bass, and that's when the fun happens. I'll do worms once the sun comes up. So I'll do poppers in the morning often, or if I'm along a shoal and there's a whole series of vegetation, I'll run the line of the vegetation with a buzz bait. And that's a great way to fill it out. And then in the early mornings, I'll throw plastic worms out and run across the bottoms. Now, there's all kinds of electronics you can use. In a boat, the boat's going to tell you where everything is. But they have these, they look like bobbers, large bobbers. And what they are is fish finders. And you cast it out and you slowly kind of bring it in and you look at your phone because it communicates and it tells you where the fish are.
You see, that's changed. I mean, that's just that's
not
insane.
cheating, it's overcoming an obstacle.
I mean, because that's the thing is you think of going out on a boat, okay, you got your fish finder, so it's doing the whole sonar stuff. That's kind of cool that you could just have that little, basically a sonar buoy at the end of your rod there, the end of your line. So go find it.
I have one rod with a heavy rod, so it's not a medium heavy; it's a heavy, with heavy duty line, and I'll toss that out, and I'll just do a pattern like this all the way out, like across the thing. So I'm like trying to
almost like a sunrise pattern, almost.
Yes, exactly. To get an idea of what's out there. I've seen people fish a location, and then I'll look at that location with a fish finder, and like there's nothing there. I mean, you're going to fish all day long with nothing. So if I'm walking a shoreline, I'll cast out and cast out and cast out. And when I see like a pod of fish, I'm always looking for bait fish, because what I want to do is the predators are watching the bait fish and they're looking for
Okay.
weakness. And so if I see a group of bait fish, and especially if they're acting erratic, like I see a lot of movement, that means a predator is nearby. And I'll toss a line out and I'll simulate an injured or dying bait fish. And that bass will go, ooh, dinner, jump right at it.
See, that's just the thing is, again, going back to when I fished as a kid, man, we just sitting there, just toss that line in. We never did anything. I mean, we were dumb kids, and we grew up. We're dumb urban kids out there fishing, because we had nothing better to do. We just throw our lines out and just. This is all new stuff. Thinking about it, because we just we just did it. I mean, we didn't care. And even back then, we didn't care what we caught. It's like, cool, we caught a fish. Sure, it's a little sunfish, but I looked, out here in Montana, I see, people fishing. We have like walleye tournaments and bass tournament. We get all these tournaments going on, and I'm just like, this stuff is like mind-boggling to a noob, right? I mean, so where would like a first-time fall bass fisher? I mean, what would their kit look like? What would
Ooh.
you recommend a kit look like?
So first thing is if you don't have a rod and reel, go out and get a nice rod and reel. Like I said, I like just over 7 feet, medium heavy rods. You want ceramic eyelets, and then I prefer a bait casting reel over a spinning reel. But if you're brand new and you've never used a bait casting reel, do yourself a favor and don't get one. There is a learning curve with bait casting
That's
reels.
like the advanced reel.
If you've never used one, you're going to spend more time untangling line than you are fishing, and it's going to discourage you, and you're going to be pissed. So use a spinning rod. Spinning reels are really good. They still work fantastic. You have better control over your drag. Well, not really, but it's easier for someone who's new than it is to adjust your drag on a bait casting reel. I feel I have more control with a bait casting reel, but I'm used to them. The other thing you want to do is remember, lures are designed to catch fishermen more than they are to catch fish. I
love that.
Excuse me. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people buying these lures because they look cool. And I'm like,
So
have you ever got anything on it? Nope. You want to hear something that's
don't buy
kind
into
of
the
crazy?
hype.
I'm going to give a plug to a lure manufacturer. I've had incredible luck with the banjo lures. Remember the TV commercials for the banjo lures? They had the different fish sizes and so forth. Those freaking things work really well. The guy who invented it fished tournaments with it and was catching fish. They work great, and they're not horribly expensive. You can get a kit on Amazon for about 40 some odd dollars, and it has all the different size fishes and as the hooks and everything. They work great, but what you want to do is you need to understand what you have in your local area. So in other words, do you have shad as your bait fish? Are they black striped shad or are they blue striped shad? Because if they're black striped, you don't want the blue striped shad lures. You want the black striped shad. What do your crayfish look like? Are they green in color? Are they bright red in color? That usually happens after you cook them.
Yeah.
Or are they darker? So what you need to do is understand what the bait is in that area. And then you want to get like colors for the daylight. Now you want to go more subdued and darker colors for overcast days, and then you want bright, shiny colors for bright sunlight. Like for instance, I will go with silver and gold spoons often. In fact, I have a YouTube short out there right now where I talk about gold and silver spoons. It's got over 1,700 views on it, and I released it yesterday or the day before.
The day before, yeah, it was.
Yeah. So you want to look at things, crankbaits. So if you want to buy a crankbait, I always start with a rattle trap. And ooh, shiny.
Long range reaper. Oh, shiny. Oh,
hi, Vanessa Kitty.
We missed you last week, Vanessa.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So we kind of get an idea of a beginner's kit. What about someone like, I remember as a kid, I used to travel with my dad. He was a traveling salesman, and there were guys in you rattle your crank. Oh God. There were guys there that like they were also traveling salesmen, and they would have like fishing rods in their car because they would just go drive along, and then they'd just like find a bridge somewhere and just do a little bit of fishing just to kind of just chill out. What kind of setup would you recommend for somebody like that that's going to be like, I don't know, I'm going to be driving, and I might want to do some bass fishing.
I did this for years, and it was my favorite way to do this. So I worked in Sacramento, California. I'm sorry, I worked in Santa Clara, California, but I lived in Sacramento. So I had almost a 2-hour drive. And I would drive down and spend the week, and then drive up and spend the weekend at home. So I had a fishing kit, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. It looked about the size of a briefcase, and it opened up, and it had like 7 rod segments that I put together, and it had a reel, and I could just put it all together, and a tiny little tackle box with my favorite lures. And I would put a rattle trap, and then I had rooster tail bladed lures, and I would have some other type of lures, and then I would have quick disconnects for the lures.
So real quick, Georgia Trucker 69 says lures to men are like diamonds to women.
Oh God, yeah.
And then long range reaper. What's your view on collapsible rods? My uncle was a truck driver, and he carried one all over the country.
If you get a good one, I mean a really good one. So mine was a Daiwa collapsible rod. It was fiberglass, not fiberglass. It was it had carbon fiber. It had a high quality reel. It was fantastic, and that was my carry with me. Now it was more of a light action rod, and like I said, if I ever saw a lake, I would just pull over, put everything together, and I would use these small rattle traps, like I said, to explore. I can't tell you how much I love rattle traps. It's my absolute 100% go-to to explore new water. More times than not, I have caught fish within my first cast on a rattle trap more than anything else. And my favorite lures. So some of my favorite color rattle trap is silver with black stripes. That's my 100% go-to. What is it?
We got Vanessa Kitty talking about her oldest brother has all of her dad's original lures. Some of them are from his dad, which is awesome.
Oh, wow.
And then we missed one earlier from Vanessa Kitty up here. Soon she'll be trying fishing flounder in was it Nyack Bay?
Yeah.
Sorry, I like that studio lights. I can't see that. I don't know what I'm reading there.
So Vanessa Kitty, I'll give you a secret weapon for for flounder and halibut fishing. Mackerel. I cut mackerel up in like chunks across and then put the hook through the backbone, and the oil spreads fast. And man, people are like, oh, use squid. Squid doesn't have a lot of scent, a lot of oils coming out of it. And what you want to do is attract it. So, yeah, mackerel works amazing. And for anyone who's listening right now, if you want catching catfish, mackerel is my secret bait for catfish fishing. I have never been skunked. I have fished next to people who had rotting chicken hearts and chicken livers, and they'll use this dip bait and all that stuff. And I'm pulling these monster catfish one after another out, and they're not getting anything. And people are like, what the hell are you using? I'm like, I ain't gonna tell you. But
So
mackerel.
in typical long range reaper
Yep.
fashion, he wants to know if you pack some Viagra in case it won't fully extend.
Yep.
Or you just rattle the crankbait until it fully extends. So I maybe that's a discussion for the for a shot show.
I just show the rod some mermaid pictures, and then it's perfect.
So there you go. And Vanessa Kitty, Grandpa, my dad's dad, and Dad taught us fishing from a very early stage. See, I learned fishing at a early age, but then I got into guns, and I was like, yeah, this is more my speed. Um, Vanessa Kitty, mackerel, shad, eels, and
Eels.
sandworms.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't do a lot of sandworms because they're kind of a pain to use, but
yeah,
they work
shrimp,
really well. Like,
shrimp live at Padre Island National Seashore. Great stuff. And then we have a bunch of laughing at the comments from Long Range Reaper. Always great watching his comments come through. They always take this show from
yeah.
GPG to PG-13 really quick. Um, uh, so I know we were talking about the portable kits. So let's talk more towards the advanced people. What about, people who they've been in that intermediate stage for a while, and they're ready to, like, man, this is my thing. I really want to make this. What do they do for their gear at that point? We
So,
already talked about reels. I'm assuming we would update our reels, but is there anything else we would do?
so with reels, you're looking for ball bearing reels. Not all reels have ball bearings in them, and it definitely helps prolong the life of the reel. But you really want to start looking at bait casting reels. And you hold on, excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Uh,
You're allergic to the subject.
excuse me. Goodness gracious. But when you start going advanced, it's not just the gear. You need to expand your knowledge. So you need to
Okay.
understand how the different fish react at the different color, at the different water temperatures. You need to start understanding the thermal planes in lakes and even the ocean. So whether you're fishing for bass, catfish, or whatever, you need to understand the feeding cycles of the specific fish that you're going after. You need to understand what the temperature is going to do to that feeding cycle of that fish and why it's important in fall, winter, spring, and summer. You need to modify what you're doing. There's a time when I like using Texas rigs. There's times I like using Carolina rigs. And then there's times where I'll do nothing but soft plastic baits. And then there's times I'll do nothing but crank baits and topwater lures. It's all dependent on everything that's going around. What colors do I choose when it's super bright and the water's clear? The water's murky and it's bright outside. What are you going to use? If it's overcast and it's murky water, what are you going to use? If it's overcast and clear water, what are you going to use? The science of the visualization and the fish itself starts coming into play. If you look at any professional like bass fishermen, it's all in their heads. They know what to throw and when to throw it and where to throw it. Who is it? That was Fancy New Fish Raiders and some read tips.
Yeah, we were talking.
Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, Vanessa. We were talking about all kinds of new technology that exists that it brings up a whole debate.
Mm-hmm. So for anybody who goes up to Alaska, I'll tell you my secret bait that I used for salmon fishing. I lived in Juneau and I used to fish under the Douglas Island Bridge, and there's pink salmon in droves out there. So the secret bait to catch, I used to catch 30 pink salmons, throw back everything under 20 pounds, and I could catch 30 in 45 minutes. And the lure I used was a hot pink egg sac pixie lure, silver pixie lure with a hot pink egg sac. And I would catch them all day long. That's the best lure to use up there.
So how did you come up with that combination? I mean,
so
did you think this one out, or did you just get lucky?
I got lucky. I got really lucky. So I went to a pawn shop and I bought a tackle box filled with lures in it. And I tried everything that was in there. Ah, Juno. Yeah, I know you did. We talked about it. Oh, I know. If you fish in Alaska, everywhere else it's like you're like, this sucks. Here's an example. Everywhere in the country, you fish off the pier and you catch these little teeny pier fish. And then you go to Alaska and your pier fish are 40 to 60 pound tomcods, and there's thousands of them. And I always tell people I was in Juneau off of the dock where the cruise ships dock there. I saw someone pull up a 200-pound halibut with a jig right off the dock.
Jesus.
And it's crazy sauce. But Juneau's nice. Really, really nice stuff.
Vanessa Kitty threw something out there. Her dad and grandpa spoons are amazing for pike and such.
Yes. Now spoons are really, really good. Now, in a overcast situation, I'll run silver and gold spoons, and I'll get attention. And it's usually not the combination you would think, but spoon fishing, it can get really, really impressive. But like Vanessa Kitty was talking about the fact that, having all the electronics, it's almost like cheating. It takes the guesswork out of it. But you can have the same success easily if you know how to do the search. Like I said, first thing I do is throw out my rattle traps. I'll scan the area, and then I'll start strategically using different baits based off of, how clear the water is, how much sun do I have, is it morning, afternoon, or evening. You can still be very successful when most people aren't catching anything if you know how to get the reaction strikes. But as you get better and better, do you really need the electronics? In a competition, you do. You absolutely do. You just have to, because you're just going to get swamped if you don't. But you got to understand the science. Everything I get into, whether it's been fishing, wine tasting, long range shooting, everything is more the science of it. It's the science that fascinates me. So, the science of understanding the wind changes, which has to do with fishing too. Which way is the wind blowing? Are you going to fish the mouth of a creek, right? Do you have water coming in, or do you have water leaving, from one direction or another? That's going to tell you where to fish.
So we're down to our last 5 minutes. Reaper asked a question that I told him to just hang on. I'm sure he's going to hear about it. Um, I know the answer, um, but we do have some. We do have some content. Both of our channels have content coming up. Um,
Yeah.
but so basically, you're mixing. We're mixing a lot of science with a lot of art in order to be successful. Um, if you have one, if you're a master at one, you can't quite be as successful without a little bit of the other. Um, no, no Reaper. There is not a hot tub at the Shot Show house. Um,
Damn it.
I, I, I do not know if I want to hang out with you and Lupo in a hot tub. Sorry, you guys are just not my type.
Well, if you're just gonna suck the joy out of life, fine. So for those who are listening, the Long Range Reaper is actually a really good friend of ours, and he's going to be attending Shot Show with us this year. And great guy. To answer your question, Mike, is I'm actually working on the editing right now, and I'm hoping to release it on Sunday, the Oregon video, which Mike is actually in.
In that video.
Yeah, he's the one that got me out to
Mike
1,200 yards.
Mike is the whole inspiration and everything about that. So do you want to kind of tease the subject of that video?
All right. So with our last 4 minutes here, I am releasing a video hopefully this Sunday, unless something happens, and it's called Quest to 1,000 Yards. I have been a competition shotgun shooter for the majority of my shooting time. It's just something I truly loved. So I've never shot 1,000 yards before. And I flew to Oregon, and the long range Reaper there put me up in his place, and he taught me how to shoot out to 1,000 yards. And there's a lot of things in there. I went out there to pick up a rifle, and we did all of this with a 6.5 PRC rifle, which I have named with Jason's help, Rob's Zombie Slayer is the name of that rifle. And
sorry guys, I'm a metalhead. I'm sorry.
And the long range Reaper there is the one that taught me how to read the wind, how to shoot out there. And we have some surprises in there too. It's a great video, and a big thank you to Reaper and his family. They were absolutely fantastic individuals for putting me up. And I will never get sick of saying thank you to you guys. You guys were awesome. So that video will be going up this weekend.
Cool. Well, I have a video. You know, it's funny. I should probably check my channel real quick to make sure this video actually went live. I should have had a video go live at noon today. It was about a shoulder holster that I'm starting to play with this winter for my full-size gun. I decided to go a little more old school and start playing with carrying my Beretta 92. So I have a shoulder holster that came in. Yes, it did go public. So that's going to be my carry gun this year. And also on the podcast coming up on Sunday noon Mountain Time, I have the no, I have not, Reaper, but that is one that's one that I've been looking at. But on Sunday, we have the Marine Gun Builder joining me on the podcast, where we're going to talk about gun building and getting into gun building and some of the problems we've had with staying in the gun building and keeping that content online. Because There are certain platforms that do not like this, and if you're listening to this show, well, what can I say? It's one of those platforms. So, anyways, everybody, man, thank you so much for coming and joining us on Friday. We love hanging out with you all on Fridays because this is actually the end of our work day, and it's really cool to just kind of geek out on things. Next week topic is going to be on gunsmithing tools. We're going to change it up. We're going to go talk about some tools, and that's the one thing I love about this podcast because the person sitting right there has no idea what next week's podcast is going to be about until right then. So everybody have a safe weekend, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much. And like always, if you haven't subscribed to our channels, please do so. Help us grow and help us share content. We'll see you very soon next week.